And then you text me that you can see me. Alrighty, great. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the good luck. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just kidding, you're not the president. All right, you let me know. Bye. I believe that I'm live and that this is working. And I promise I will get better at this. I've been putting it off for, 2 or 3 years. So it's Saturday night at 8:06 p.m. So come on, 6 minutes isn't a terrible delay. It's not bad. I did my level best to be here right at 8 o'clock. And next week I'll be here at 8 because now I know what to do. So I thought about how this show was going to be similar to radio, to my radio show that was Saturday night at 8 o'clock that you guys have sent me so many emails and messages and said, we wish you were still on the air. And then people have said, we wish that there was somebody on the air that would tell us what they really, really think, or tell us the truth, or talk to us in such a way that seems familiar or kind or compassionate, or not what seems to be kind of going on. So first of all, I want to talk about the fact that we have to stop being polarized about this. I understand that we live in a country that has two very distinct political parties. I understand that it is an election year. I understand that there was an enormous amount of acrimony and divisiveness before the last election and since the last election. I understand, and I guess I keep calling it the bailout. It's not a bailout, it's a stimulus package. But being incredibly immature and a comedian, saying the words stimulus and package side by side all the time just doesn't seem right to me. But the fact that somehow, in a very short amount of time, think about it, in a very short amount of time, all of these extremely different-minded people have figured out a way to do their level best to keep us safe, to give us some relief, and to create a new normal within the new normal. So I think the first thing I want to talk about is polarity, because this is so different than any experience I've ever had in my half a century on the planet. This is beyond, like when you want to talk about, unprecedented, that's the word people keep using. This is unprecedented. Oh, this is unprecedented. When you use a word enough, my father used to say, Monique, don't speak in hyperboles. It makes you sound ignorant. Nothing is the best because you don't know. You haven't had every single ice cream cone. And he would say, say that something is very, very good, or it's the best that you've had, but do not speak in hyperbole. People do that. And then he also would say, when you say that everything is special, then nothing is special. When you love everything, then it doesn't seem like you love anything. It seems like everything's kind of cool. So I don't want to speak in hyperbole. All I can say is that as many times as we use the word unprecedented, ladies and gentlemen, we have lost all cabin pressure. End of story. Period. Full stop. This is not the Kennedy assassination. I wasn't alive during then. I was alive but not aware. This is not Vietnam. This is not Kent State. This is not Woodstock. These were all unprecedented things. But they were isolated. They were American phenomena. They weren't around the world. This is a global situation in the time of social media. The news stories are, a cruise ship that can't get into port in South America. There's a ship just floating around with people that need things, help. Actually, the cruise ship company came up with a very smart idea. And forgive me because I don't have notes like when I did radio. I had all these news stories around me. This is a little more personal, a little more extemporaneous. But the ship came up with a brilliant idea, which was to send an empty ship full of supplies and crew and additional food and tests. Test the guests take the healthy guests off the ship and put them on the new ship with new food and new crew, and leave the other crew and the guests that were showing symptoms or ill on the old ship. And I thought, that is genius. People are coming up with unprecedented ideas, because I'm sure it's extremely expensive to send an empty second ship. And yet it happened. And then I smiled today when I saw the article about how people understood that Hoda Kotb cried on the air when Drew Brees donated $5 million. And she said it's because everyone's emotions are so right on the surface. Well, I have news for you. We call that Tuesday in Comedyville. You know, I cry all the time, and that's okay. And oddly enough, I haven't cried at all since all of this happened. I teared up a little bit on my Facebook Live, but I haven't cried at all. And I think that's because I'm sort of counterintuitive. When everybody zigs, I zag. That's what comedians do. It's you know, at the height of the Depression was when Charlie Chaplin was arguably the most famous and certainly the highest paid entertainer in the world. Because there's something about, you know, even Horatio Alger, those rags to riches stories during the Depression, there's something about being able to free someone's mind, distract them like a baby with car keys, and then lead them in another direction, which is what a good artist and certainly a good comedian should be able to do. So when I was looking at all of the news, you know, the first thing I thought about was how much of it is politics, conspiracy, finger pointing, and name calling. That has to stop. I'm asking you, as a personal favor, to me, to yourself, to your country, to your fellow Americans, I'm asking you as a favor to count to 10. This is a pretty easy favor. Count to 10 before you post something on social media, and ask yourself, what is my intention with posting this? Is it to further an agenda of disgruntlement, anger, self-righteousness? We should have never elected fill in the blank. You know, so-and-so shouldn't be in charge. Ask yourself, because now we are all our own entertainers. We have lost all cabin pressure. We're in charge. We are in charge. So I'm asking you as a thought leader, because every single person with social media, every single person with a cell phone, and I'm watching my own stream swell with comics who I've never seen post or do podcasts going live and sitting with one friend, or, you know, I've been asked to join several things, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Every single person with a phone and a thought can potentially become a thought leader. So I'm asking you to do me a personal favor and count to 10 before you post. What is your intention? Is it to put good into the matrix? Is it to uplift? Is it to support? Is it to help somebody count a blessing? What is it? If it's just to further your agenda in a mean-spirited way, can you ask yourself if you need to do that right this minute? Can it wait 30 days? I mean, nobody can rally. Nobody can get to primaries. Nothing's really going on. Can you hit the pause button on polarity, divisiveness, being a hater? You know, even as a comic, when I scroll and I see people doing very well and having tons of views and likes, in my own head I tell myself not only not to be envious and not to be a hater, but to like as many of my other comics friends' work as I can, as I have the time to like, to recommend, to tag, to support their projects if I'm able to. This is not the time. This is not the time. I see certain things posted. I love all the funny stuff, by the way. I love all the funny stuff. And there was one thing which I did not post. I did not post it, where somebody posted a mashup of President Trump's face with Joe Exotic and said Tiger Trump, and I laughed very hard. And again, no agenda of my own. It was funny, but I did not post it. I didn't even put it out there. I didn't share it. As funny as it was, and as timely as Tiger King is, and as much as everybody's talking about it, because it's me. It's clearly a giant dig on who is, whether you like him or not, the current leader of this country. And if you don't like that, then, something different will happen in November. But that's even myself. I made myself count to 10 and say, you know what? I'll send it to like some family members that know more than anything that I'm the person that shuts down any and all divisive and hateful conversations, because I have people in my own family at the extreme of the political spectrum. I have part of my family that is left of, we don't need no stinking badges, and I have part of my family that is so right, like I need binoculars, like where did you go? So, and as long as I've uttered the words Tiger King, can I just dig in for one second and say, if you're looking for something to wildly distract you, to take you completely out of the realm that is as ridiculous and unbelievable as the situation in which we find ourselves, it would be that show. If you were saying, hey, what could possibly be, I had a friend say, and I was like, genius. A friend say, this is the definition of fact is stranger than fiction. This is it right here. Period, full stop. So I'm not going to dig in, because if you haven't watched it, you haven't watched it. But when I was on KFI, I actually dug into the Joe Exotic story a few years ago for two reasons. Number one, I'm an incredible animal lover, and in some ways, so is he. But what tripped him up was when he made some mistakes with some animals, and that led to an epic mugshot. And I used to have, and I may bring it back, I used to have, because I guarantee you, anybody that's committing crimes now, wow. Sidebar, how hard must it be to do crime now? Like, are you going to break into somebody's house? Everybody's home, including their children and dogs. All right, are you going to steal their car? How far are you going to get when there's 8 cars on the road? As soon as somebody calls it in stolen, like every cop's going to see you. Like, what can you do? You can't, with daylight savings, it's hard to hold up a store after dark. And when you think about the crimes being committed, I would think that they're going to be things like, breaking into an avocado warehouse, or, finding a stash of toilet paper, and this is a little bit dark, or the crimes committed within a home when you have people that were already kind of like, I am so over you, and now I'm stuck with you. And I haven't bothered to look at that aspect of the news, but I am certain that there's all kind of, and I say it with a smile, because let's hope that it's, Nerf bats. I'm guaranteeing that there's all kind of people there's a lot of heavy drinking, there's a lot of shoving. I'm going to guess there's some shoving. I'm going to guess there's as much shoving as loving going on in certain households. And I'm guessing a lot of children that up until recently were just given timeouts are, what kind of a timeout can you give a kid in a small home? What's the timeout? Go sit in the bathroom. I think at this point, people would love a timeout. People would love private space. I'm guessing there's a whole lot of people that are creating she sheds in their closets. The she shed is now officially the linen closet with the bottom shelf taken out. These are all of the things that I've been thinking about. The funny stories that I've looked at and said, like, okay, I want to talk about this because this is what I used to talk about when I was on the air. One of the stories that tripped my trigger this week, Walmart, because they can check, and yes, Walmart has figured out that they're not selling bottoms, just tops. People are buying nice blouses and button-down shirts. Everybody, which brings me full circle back to what I said at the beginning, people are buying things to look nice from the waist up. Everyone's an anchor man now. So people are buying tops, they're buying, blouses, sweaters, etc., etc. No pants. So I'm just letting you know, if you're watching a friend's video blog or Facebook Live, there's a very good chance that they're not wearing pants. I laughed very hard also out loud when I saw somebody tweet that their husband was officially calling regular pants that weren't sweatpants hard pants. Hard pants. I do a whole bit in my act about man pants and how much I hate jeggings and men wearing pants with stretch in them, and that I know that men do yoga, but I don't want to see it. Like if you do yoga, fine, and then change out of your Lululemon yoga pants and put on some man pants. Evidently nobody is buying or wearing man pants. It's just not happening. Everybody's in jeggings or skinny jeans or underwear, or maybe nothing. I'm going to guess there's a lot of people free balling. I did, when I went on Facebook Live, say that this was not for children, so I can say free balling. I could never say free balling on KFI, so there you have it. That's, I got that going for me. So I want to talk a little bit about math and stories about math, because we have the statistics. We all have the statistics. And a month ago today, exactly 1 month ago, it's like crazy to me to think about this, but a month ago I was here at home getting ready to go to Australia and New Zealand and French Polynesia, and things were starting to get a little weird. I flew out on Friday night, March the 6th. The airport was relatively empty. I was able to upgrade to a very nice seat on Air New Zealand for $150. I effectively got first class. The guy at the airport was so kind and nice. He literally hugged me. And everybody was like doing this stuff already. And he hugged me because I was very patient with him, because some of the equipment was down and they were incredibly understaffed, and everybody was all ready. You could see this sort of gradual stop down. I had never seen the Tom Bradley terminal. Is it Tom? Yeah, Tom Bradley. I always get confused with the other Bradley from the Washington Post, but it's a Bradley. Anyway, it was empty, is what I'm saying. And I boarded my flight. I had a good seat, and I didn't know what I was flying into. I literally didn't know what was going to happen when I got there. And the NBA was still playing, and this is what I wrote. I'm just gonna show it to you, and I should have said, I should have marked it. I'm just going through here. But what I basically wrote was that it didn't make sense to me that we had less than 100 deaths at that point, and that the NBA was shutting down, and then that didn't seem like very good math. However, I started thinking that, like every other big news story, forget unprecedented, like every other big news story, you have to ask yourself, what's really going on? I remember when I started comedy and I was an open micer in 1992. Think about the original, OG George Bush and OG Iraq and all of that stuff that was going on in the early 90s. Think about all of that. And I remember sitting with other comics and them saying, what do you think's really going on? And everybody had opinions, and it's because of this, and it's because of that. And all I could think of is, I'm not entirely certain. In fact, I'm not certain at all. It's not even a matter of I'm not entirely certain. I'm not certain at all. And when this whole situation started unfurling, I thought, the math, the billions of dollars lost don't add up to the, to the number of people that are sick or getting sick or that have died at that point. It doesn't make sense. But then I thought about, when I started reading, because that's what I do, well, let's just say round numbers. We have 330 million people in this country. And then you think about what 3% of them are versus, 1% is a lot, but 3%. Because at that point they were figuring out that the survival rate was, 97%. But I zoomed in because I thought, okay, think about who is vulnerable. Who's vulnerable are, the immune depressed and the elderly with bad heart conditions. Well, we've already seen in this very short amount of time, in this month's time, we've already seen, that who's been tested and who was negative and who was positive. And if you think about it, right now what's going on in New York City. Well, New York City is a very important thought base, power base, socioeconomic base. It's where Wall Street is. And you think about, forget the 3%. The people that are vulnerable are, dare I say it, old white men with money. Old white men with money. There's a lot of very important decision-making, thought leaders and people with influence and people with enormous amounts of money. But I've been saying this my entire life because I don't even remember who told it to me, that a problem that can be fixed by writing a check is not a problem. But evidently, if you are not in good health, there is no check that can be written that will bring you back from this illness if this illness decides that it wants you and that you fall under that umbrella. So I was talking to a girlfriend and I said, how incredibly ironic that my mother, who is a super hard-working 78-year-old Latina woman, who was, a single mom, worked really hard, got her degree in her 30s to teach nursing, her RN. She got her master's in her 40s. My mom is the definition of late bloomer. And currently she still works full-time to this moment. And she's at my aunt's in Florida, and she's still working on her computer at 78 years old. Oh, 77. Sorry, Mom, if you're watching. But my point is, the fact that there is a possibility that some important people who have money, who have had a heart attack, or have diabetes, or whatever, rich old white men are at risk. And because of that, ironically, we, the people, are being asked to take unprecedented measures to protect ourselves and each other. Now, there's a twist in there for me. There's just a funny twist in there. And it brings me an enormous amount of joy to see that we are being good people. Even though this is a global situation, it is being handled differently in every country based on the politics, the mindset, the pervasive culture of every country. And I have to tell you, I'm very proud as an American how we are handling this. I went for a run yesterday, and if you look at my little 3:30 live, I'm doing every day, I'm going on Facebook Live at 3:30 on my Monique Marvez official fan page. Please watch it. I think it'll make you happy. I'm doing little sort of nuggets of happiness, and they're not all like super happy, joy, but they're things to think about. I'm a big fan of, being a little bit thought-provoking, but then ultimately leaving you better than I found you and making you laugh, because laughter is the salve that will keep reality from scarring. So we need that salve more than ever before. So that being said, I went for a run yesterday. I went to Lake Hollywood, and I thought about what I wanted to say, and I was thinking about what I wanted to say tonight, and I was grateful beyond measure that so many people when they saw the Facebook Live, reached out to me on multiple platforms in multiple ways and just said, please bring back Saturday night. And I was going to do it anyway, but boy, it feels good to do something because people actually asked you to. And I'm asking you to do something, which is listen to the people around you, what they are needing or wanting, even in the silence. Sometimes in the silence, you'll hear things. Call people that you regularly call a little more. They can always have the option not to pick up, but boy, it's probably going to feel good for them to know that you care about them. I have a girlfriend who lives here in LA, and she and I, we've been friends for 34 years. 34 years, that's not a minute. And I love her to pieces. And long spans of time can pass that we don't see each other. We always see each other at Christmas. We generally have 1 or 2 meals a year. I always reach out to her around her birthday in July. It's kind of like the midway point. I've been purposely reaching out to her a little bit extra because I know that she's not married. I know she lives alone, and I know that she's one of those people that really shouldn't spend a lot of time in public right now. So, think about things like this. Just kind of think about it. So I kind of section the show into 3 parts here, because usually we would have a commercial break, and I would talk about a car, and we would go to the news with Michael Chappé, but we're not doing any of that. So now the second section of the show, and I'm watching my time, so if my old boss Robin Bertolucci were listening, she would be glad that the break didn't go long. Kind of did, but okay. I wanted to talk about the last closest thing we have to this, which is 9/11. And I want you to think about how you reacted to that. Because there's a very good chance, I always say if you want to know how somebody's going to act in the future, kind of go back and see how they acted in the past. Now, do we have anything comparable to this? Well, as a nation, not as a globe, but as a nation, we have 9/11. As Americans, we have 9/11. But I'm going to guess that 3/4 of you, if not more, have had some unprecedented catastrophe. You've had, in fact, as I said that out loud, wow, I just got hit with a crazy wave of emotion because I had a super fan out of Miami named Stuart. And Stuart and I knew each other through mutual radio friends for many, many years. And every Saturday night that I was on, he would tweet, listening live to my Saturday Night Girlfriend, and he would tweet and spread the word and post things on Facebook. And any show I did in South Florida, no matter where it was, he would buy tickets as soon as they went on sale, and he never asked for a comp. And he died this year in 2019, the end of 2019. May 4th will be exactly 1 year since I saw him. I saw him at a gig in South Florida on May 4th, and I remember that he was very naked, very vulnerable, very real in his battle with cancer. He would post what he was going through and his blood cells, and it was very out there. And I remember being proud of him for 2 reasons. Number 1, that he fought like a mofo. And number 2, that he understood the need for community and support. That he was not afraid, that he was not too proud to put himself out there and say, hey, this is what I'm going through. So using Stuart as sort of my avatar of vulnerability and nakedness and realness and, a pause. I'm going to guess that 3/4 of you have had, bam, out of the blue, a diagnosis, a this, a that, and then it's done. And then you have to, everything like, and And interestingly enough, on my flight home from New Zealand, from Australia, I was very, very, very upset about the fact that I felt bad for a lot of my fellow passengers. I didn't feel bad for myself. I was fine. I was going home, and that's what I very much wanted. But a lot of older folks give up their homes and live on cruise ships. It's a good deal. You know, you get, there's a hospital in the bottom of all of them, and there's, you know, maid service and 3 hots every day, 3 meals. I think of people that have been in prison saying 3 hots and a cot. It's way better than 3 hots and a cot. But my point is that they have everything they need, including socialization and activities, and they're traveling around. So it's pretty amazing. So I had met this wonderful couple when I was on the boat, and they were saying how they were going to move to another boat, and the QE2 was parked next to us in Sydney Harbor. And there's a lot of people that, I mean, that's what they do. They saved up their whole lives so that they could just go from luxury ship to luxury ship. They didn't plan for this. It's unprecedented. So I was on a plane of elderly people who had been told, you know, A, get off the boat, which is the equivalent of leave your home. You planned for this, plan ruined. And plan ruined makes me laugh. My girlfriend Rebecca shared with me that she used to read her daughter's diary, which is what all parents should do, by the way. Now that you've got your kids locked in your house with you, it's a really good time to see what they've really been up to. And she said that her daughter had this plan to steal this little boy from another little girl because, you know, she liked him or whatever, and that when it went awry, she wrote, plan ruined. So that's sort of our family lexicon, so now you can use it. So plan ruined. And all these like the entire plane was filled with people that for sure were part of that percentage. You know, they were older, most of them Caucasian, clearly moneyed, very, very nervous, and, you know, having to scramble to make a plan B or even a plan C to go to a child's house in Texas, or, you know, a little tiny apartment that they keep in Florida just as a pied-à-terre. Now, I'm not saying boo-hoo-hoo, you know, no, because again, this isn't about money. This is about stress and being elderly and having planned and saved your whole life to live a particular way. Plan ruined. And not only plan ruined, there's this thing happening that you've never seen, because, you know, you've got to be pretty old to have lived through World War II, you know. So no, these were not people that were, you know, alive. And I guess my mom was born in the summer of 42. So you think, yeah, 3, 4, 5 years old. These are not people that, you know, had been around and really knew what was going on. Because I think World War II, I mean, I can't even imagine. I just can't. When you think of World War, you know, that is a global thing. And it was not a global thing like this. It was, you know, at that time unprecedented. So that being said, as I came home with these people, I started thinking about, you know, how your life in a moment's time, no matter what you've saved up for, no matter what you've planned, no matter, I mean, I don't think Jim Fixx planned on dying after a run. I think he thought that was going to make him live longer. So, you know, so go back and revisit what you did. And I know exactly what I did. Because here's the truth. The truth is, a lot of people live on the margins. A lot of people, in a weird way, this is a blessing in disguise, because they have a legitimate excuse to call their creditors. There's something about everybody being in the same boat. There's something about everybody being on the same plane. I remember after Hurricane Andrew in Miami, I wrote an amazing joke. And here it is. I have a brother who I adore, and his life has changed a lot, so he shouldn't be mad about me telling this joke. but he's a late bloomer. He's a Comic-Con nerd, and you know, back in the day he had very bad glaucoma, and he was kind of a party animal, overgrown man-child, and but he's a genius. He's really a genius. And after 9/11, after Hurricane Andrew, you know, my mom called me, and my phone, there were no cell phones in August of 92 when Hurricane Andrew hit Miami. There were no cell phones, but my phone never went out of service in South Miami. My mother calls me and she says, you have to check on your brother. You have to. I insist. You know, if you can make it to Coconut Grove, well, you know, there's flooding, there's trees in the street, coconut trees, and down power lines, and sharks in people's backyards. But, you know, that's her baby boy and her oldest son, and if you know anything about Latina mothers, you have to check on your brother. Well, my brother lived above a food spot, which is like a convenience store in Miami, and downstairs there were these Jamaican people who had a freezer full of jerked beef. And again, there's that immaturity about not being able to see stimulus package without laughing. Jerked beef. So they had a freezer full of jerked beef that was going to spoil. And my brother, the genius, figured out how to take a downed traffic light. Now, back in the day, the old school yellow traffic lights, I haven't even seen, maybe in the Midwest, they still have those big yellow, you know, traffic lights. My brother took a down traffic light, took it apart, built a makeshift barrel barbecue. Like he showed them how to use the base of it. I'm telling you, he's a genius. And create a barbecue so that they could cook all the jerked beef at one time and it wouldn't spoil since the electricity was out. So by the time I got to the parking lot of the food spot, it was a full-on reggae party. Like a complete party, like reggae music and the smell of jerked beef and not so jerked weed in the air. And here's the joke. You know, obviously I've given you a very long setup, but I was like, JC, and now I've said his name, you know, but it's pretty easy to figure out who my siblings are. My mother, I said, Mommy was so worried about you. Are you okay? You know, and the punchline is, are you kidding me? I'm fabulous. Don't gotta go to work. Don't gotta lie about it. So, in a weird way, you know, we're all in this together. Let yourself enjoy the pause. Let yourself stop down. Let yourself, you know, don't gotta go to work. Don't gotta lie about it. And those of you who do have to go to work, bless you that you have someplace to go. And super extra blessings to people in the medical field. My mother's a nurse who taught nursing. Her sister's a nurse. My cousin Kimberly's a nurse. My dear friend Sherry's a nurse. And I think it's because nurses and comedians kind of have a similar mindset in a weird way. You want to aid and relieve people. You want to bring them comfort. You want to distract them, you know. I remember when I was a little girl and whenever I would be hurt, and that was back when you still used methylate and mercurochrome, which is literally mercury red, you know, and they would dab this orange stuff on me. And my great grandmother, I called her abuelita. She was really, really old. She looked like Yoda without the green eyeshadow. And she would just, you know, rub my hand with a little rhyme, sana, sana, culito de rana, which literally translates into heal, heal, tiny little hiney of a frog. I don't know why that would make you heal other than it rhymed. Now, I have the camera aimed at me, so I just want to note that just like my radio show, where I never read mail, I never took calls, and I rarely responded to tweets, you know, once I get on a roll, I get on a roll. So please know that I'm completely acknowledging energetically that you've chosen to spend this time with me, that you're watching, that you've been watching, maybe you've told someone else to watch, that you've subscribed. All of this, even if I don't say your individual name, you know, I feel you. I genuinely do. I feel your goodwill and your energy. which is what's always been my driving force. That's always been what, gets me up in the morning. And I actually started this little thing on Instagram. I'm at Monique Marvez on Instagram, where for 30 days I'm going to have what I call my pan positive project. I don't even like saying, pandemic. It just sounds, so I'm just going to call it the positive pan project. For 30 days, every day I'm going to tackle one thing that is hard or scary, or I haven't done in a very long time, or I'm not good at, or I've never, thought I could master, and just give it a whirl. And some of them are going to overlap because some of them are going to take a learning curve. But today I dyed my hair, and I'll post some pictures of that on social media, because not only did I, dye my hair, but I snuck onto the roof of my building and I rinsed it out in the shower over in the corner so that I wouldn't stain my bathroom. And that in itself was sort of like an I Spy, like dun, 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 dun. So when I got up there were people like, who is this person with dye in their hair and 2 buckets and a bathrobe headed to the corner? But I did it. I did my own hair. Dyed, washed, and blow dried. You know how long it's been since I did my own hair and it came out looking pretty decent? Years. Because I tell myself, I can't. It doesn't look right when I do it myself. I can't do it that good. But you know why? Because I haven't had to. Because as long as I could pick up my phone and make an appointment, I could have somebody else do it. I'm wondering how much money I'm going to save when this is all over, when I just intermittently have other people do things because I've mastered them. I'm not going to tell you what the project for tomorrow is, but it's a whopper. It's Sunday. And I will be doing the little 3:30 Facebook Live show tomorrow, and I will be properly dressed. I won't have dye in my hair like I did today or running clothes like I did yesterday. So I want to talk a little bit more about then and now. I want to talk a little bit about 9/11, only because I've journaled. I've said it before, but I'm like Kevin Spacey in Seven. Like, this is my actual for real journal. Like, I write every day, all day. When I'm not talking, I'm writing. Like, pretty much, like, I can just pretty much open it up anywhere and start reading it. For instance, right here, I was writing about Hurricane Andrew, which I guess is why it was on my mind. And I wrote, what happened after Andrew? I had gigs. I had a fabulous 30th birthday. I hung out with my friend John B. He actually reached out to me, my friend John B. We haven't hung out since I left Miami. And he saw me on Facebook Live and reached out and, reminded me that we are the Latinos, meaning we're intrepid, we get stuff done. It's like the line in Hamilton. Immigrants, we get the job done. I have Hamilton tickets for April. Don't know if I'm going. Don't know what's going to happen. Don't really care. But I wrote, how grateful am I to be here now? That's what I wrote when I was in a hotel room in Sydney. 27 and a half years ago, I was in full swing off, kicking off this journey, meaning just when Andrew hit was when I was starting to get more and more gigs and travel, and I had a day job, so all my gigs were just around South Florida. And there I was. So when I was talking about the margins before, when 9/11 hit, I'm going to tell you the most important and interesting part of it for me. Number one is that the fact that I had to drive cross country meant nothing because I was a road comic. I was always on the road. At the time I had a Toyota 4Runner. When 9/11 hit, I had a 1994, which for me to be pretty close to almost the same decade at that time was a big deal. So I had an avocado, maybe more olive, green Toyota 4Runner with cloth seats. And my brother William, who I adore, we had fake CB names. We had big cell phones And that was back when cell phones cost a fortune and there was roaming. And so I was always careful when I called them, and it's before Wi-Fi. I mean, think about 2001. And so I had this cell phone, and my brother and I had names for each other, our fake CV names. And I was Turtle One. I was Turtle One because I carried everything that mattered to me in that 4Runner. I had my dog. I could go thrifting in it because it was large. I had most of my clothes. I just had a little apartment here in Koreatown. But most of everything that mattered to me was always in the back of that 4Runner. In fact, at one point I had a full desk in there because I was decoupaging it one city at a time. Like I would get somebody to help me get the desk out if I had a Wednesday through Sunday gig in a comedy club. And I would decoupage in my free time in my hotel room. The last night I wouldn't decoupage so it could dry, and I'd get somebody to help me put the desk back in the back of the 4Runner. So I was Turtle One. And my brother, he was Tiny Dancer, because my brother's about 6'1", pretty broad shoulders, big guy. He's got big calves, big guy. And when he dances, you've never seen anyone that defies the laws of gravity. He's either dancing like the Spaz in 16 Candles, Anthony Michael Hall, or he's an incredible tango dancer. So he's Tiny Dancer, plus we love the song, Hold Me Closer, Tiny Dancer, and I'm Turtle One. And after 9/11, I got an enormous amount of phone calls on my cell phone. It was, as we say now, blowing up. And it was because I've always been the queen of reframing. I had a childhood that, although not unhappy, it was not an unhappy childhood. It was a childhood, fraught with movement. A lot of movement, a lot of instability. I like to say I had a childhood with very little margin of error. I had to always kind of stick the landing. I met a lot of new people. I went to a lot of new schools. A lot of things changed very rapidly, and not always for the better. So, when 9/11 hit, a lot of people called me because I like to think that one of my superpowers is finding the most level piece of floor in an earthquake. I can find stability in a funhouse. I can do that. I can figure out where the safest spot to stand is. That's what I do. It's one of my superpowers. I can reframe a situation to make it what it's supposed to be, which is always to believe that the universe, God, whatever word you're comfortable with, is conspiring for your good. So after 9/11, I drove cross country. My next gig was going to be in Colorado Springs at a place called Looney's, which I still go to, which I'm booked at the end of July, and I hope I make it there. I believe that I will, actually. I'm going to put it out there. Yes, I will be in Colorado Springs July 31st. That being said, I called the owner at the time. His name was Larry Lee, and I loved him very much. Still love him, in fact. He's still with us. His wife, Lila, is no longer with us. And I said, what do you want to do? What do you want to do, Larry? And he said, well, I would like you to come. He said, if we don't do a show, the bad guy wins, and I don't want the bad guy to win. So we'll take Wednesday night off, and we'll be back on stage Thursday. I said, okay, that's what we're going to do. And I remember driving. I was in Indiana, Bloomington. It was a Monday night. I was doing a little gig at a place called Bear's Place. And it was an interesting night. Like the club was packed, and when you played Bears, there was pizza, very, very good pizza. And I remember having a delicious pizza and having some friends show up. And I went back to my hotel room, and there's much more to the story, but I'm giving you the pared down Saturday night version. I turned on the TV on that Tuesday morning to see what the driving conditions were going to be between Indiana. I was going to head down the 65, catch the 70, head straight out. I mean, this is what I do. I knew the country like other people know the back of their hand. And I had this plan. I'm going to go da-da-da-da-da. So I turned the TV on. So I actually saw it all happening live. You know, I was watching to see what the weather was going to be, and plus I sort of had the habit of watching the Today Show, because my dad had the habit of watching the Today Show, and he'd always watch the Today Show, and he had a crush on Katie Couric. He's gone now, so he wouldn't be upset with me for letting you know that, because she really wasn't his type, but he did. There was something about Katie Couric that my dad really liked. So there I was watching the Today Show, and there you have it. You know, it started happening, and it was unprecedented. And I remember thinking, I'm just going to act as normal as possible until there's a reason for me not to. And I can tell you that I waited in a very long gas line, and I was gouged, but I felt like I wanted to have a full tank of gas because I didn't know what was going to await me on, I-70. I went into a Kmart and used their Western Union service to pay for some CDs that I had bought from Uproar Records, not knowing, what awaited me financially or what was ahead. I knew that I owed that money, and I knew that I had sold some CDs, and I Western Unioned money to Uproar Records, and I filled my gas tank, and I answered people, even though I was in roaming, and I tried to tell everybody why not only was everything going to be okay, but that I felt like we could actually be better once we mourned the loss of the 3,500 people and two very important buildings, and all of the energy that surrounds, the Twin Towers, and I remember as a little girl reading about them when we were children, and we got the weekly reader, and I remember reading about these two buildings being built, and I remember that they had a certain tribe of Indian that wasn't afraid of heights, that would scale the building while it was being built to do, I guess, some of the detail or finishing work. I read that in a weekly reader at Scott Lake Elementary School in 1971, I'm going to tell you. And I remember thinking that as afraid of heights as I was, that next time I visited my Uncle Frank in New York, that I very much wanted to see those buildings. And I did. I went to the top of those buildings when I visited my cousins from Long Island. And I remember that I wouldn't go right up to the glass, that I stood back about 10 feet. And I also remember that I felt as a child that the building swayed a little bit. It was really kind of awesome. And I never went in those buildings again. And I went to New York many, many times. But I have that memory. And it was a great memory. And I remember thinking that it wasn't about the number, or back to math. It wasn't about 35 or however many people died specifically there, or the Pentagon. It wasn't about that math. It was a much bigger math. And there was also sort of a global aspect to it, because obviously there was going to be a reaction to that action. And again, there's so much more to all of these stories, but we've got nothing but time. And what I did in those days was take mental note of, I would stop at a gas station to get a Diet Coke. At the time they didn't have Diet Cherry Coke, Coke Zero, it was just Diet Coke. And I would stop to get, a Diet Coke and some beef jerky, because as nervous as I was, I didn't want to gain weight just like now. And I was already kind of chubby. So I was doing Atkins, I think, at the time. So I ate a lot of beef jerky on the road. And I would take a bite of my beef jerky, and I would let Vinnie Moscatelli, my dog, take a bite of my beef jerky. And my mom saw me do that once. She's like, "That's disgusting. I can't believe you let that dog, bite that." And I would say, "Well, we're in this together. I know where his mouth's been, and there's times where I leave him alone in the hotel room where he doesn't know where mine's been. So if he's willing to bite the beef jerky, I'm willing to share it with him. And I just remember seeing carloads of people who just couldn't get home. They couldn't get flights. I remember driving through St. Louis. It's one of the only cities where the interstate goes, right through the city, and seeing airplanes parked at the airport. They could barely park all of the grounded flights. And I remember seeing energetically this whole different vibration now, where people that had been in the same clothes for a few days were talking at the gas pumps and asking each other how they were, if they were okay, if they needed anything. Nobody, for a split second, for a pause, just like on Christmas Day, there's a thing in Florida where when you go through the turnpike on the holidays, people will pay the toll for the person behind them. Maybe that's where the expression "pay it forward," but it's a thing. I've pulled up to the toll booth a few times and said, "Oh no, somebody else paid your toll." And being a road comic, the Florida Turnpike between Orlando and Florida and Miami, Florida, can be $12. That's a nice gesture. So people were very much paying it forward. People were very much asking each other if they were okay, if they were going to be able to get home all right. We're home already. We're home. We're in our homes. The vast majority of us are healthy. The vast majority of us are safe. The vast majority of us are still sane, mostly sane, the working definition. And we're in this together. I'm in this with you, as I feel that you are in this with me. And we'll just keep coming together on Saturday nights, and we'll keep doing what we're doing. So I wanted to leave you with this, which isn't watch Tiger King, although I am going to say, if you've got it, smoke them while you got them. If my internet gets spotty sometimes, and I think it's because so many people are on the internet at once, and I apologize that sometimes the picture is a little bit blurry. So this is the last thing I'm going to leave you with, and I'll be on Facebook tomorrow. What if we pretend? It's a game of let's pretend. What if we pretend that this is on purpose? Not by accident, not because this virus broke out, not because now even the trails and beaches in LA are shut down. Let's not think about what we've lost, what we don't have, what, liberties we have to put on hold. Let's pretend this is on purpose. Let's pretend that this is a very, very good thing. Let's pretend. Let's fake it till we make it. Because I'm a very, very firm believer that if you really get into it, like how many people move to LA to become actors and actresses, and now you're walking around, wringing your hands and complaining because you can't get to Jamba Juice. Not that, that's not something to be upset about. I love me some Jamba Juice, but the point is, if you came here to be an artist, if you came here, whatever you wanted to do, you wanted to be an animator, you wanted to be a singer, whatever you wanted to do, no one is stopping you. We've gone full circle. You can be a thought leader. You can influence people. You can raise people up. You want to be an actor? Act like this was on purpose. Make this the greatest role of your life. Be the star of the pandemic. Do it. There's nobody to stop you now. So I'm going to leave you this wonderful Saturday night in intense gratitude, going straight into this on purpose, in purpose. Love hard, forgive harder, and get as happy as you can, as fast as you can. Thank you for being here with me. Good night.